Floods have been some of the deadliest and most destructive natural disasters in U.S. history, wiping out entire cities and leaving devastation in their wake. Throughout history, massive floods have reshaped landscapes, destroyed infrastructure, and claimed thousands of lives across the country. One of the deadliest floods in U.S. history was the Johnstown flood of 1889, which killed over 2,200 people in Pennsylvania. The disaster occurred when the South Fork Dam collapsed after days of heavy rainfall, releasing a 40-foot-high wall of water. The flood swept through Johnstown at speeds of 40 miles per hour, crushing homes, factories, and railroads in minutes. Survivors described the flood as an unstoppable tidal wave, carrying entire buildings and even locomotives downstream. The floodwaters ignited an oil fire when they reached a railroad bridge, causing a secondary disaster that burned hundreds of victims alive. The Johnstown flood remains one of the deadliest natural disasters in American history, leaving permanent scars on the region. Another catastrophic flood occurred during the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927, which submerged over 27,000 square miles across multiple states. Record-breaking rains caused the Mississippi River to overflow, displacing nearly 700,000 people and destroying thousands of homes. Entire towns disappeared underwater, forcing residents to flee to rooftops and treetops as rescue boats struggled to reach them. The flood devastated communities in Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, leaving long-lasting economic and social impacts. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers responded by reinforcing levees, but many poor and black communities were left with no assistance. In some areas, floodwaters remained for months, turning fertile farmlands into vast, uninhabitable swamps. The disaster ultimately led to major reforms in federal flood control policies, including the construction of massive levee systems. In 1972, the Rapid City flood in South Dakota struck without warning, killing 238 people in one of the worst flash floods in history. A stalled thunderstorm dumped over 12 inches of rain in just 6 hours, overwhelming creeks and causing dam failures. A 20-foot-high wall of water surged through the city at night, sweeping away cars, houses, and bridges before anyone could escape. Many victims drowned in their homes as floodwaters rose too quickly for them to evacuate in time. The disaster led to significant urban planning changes, including the creation of green spaces in flood-prone areas to prevent future tragedies. The Texas floods of 1935 devastated the city of Austin when the Colorado River swelled beyond its banks, wiping out entire neighborhoods. Historic rainfall caused the river to rise 50 feet above normal, destroying homes, factories, and power plants in a matter of hours. The flooding destroyed bridges, crippled transportation, and left the city in total darkness as electrical systems failed. Rescue workers used boats to navigate the streets, pulling stranded survivors from rooftops and trees. The disaster led to the construction of the Highland Lakes dams, which now help regulate the river's flow and prevent future floods. In 1900, the Galveston hurricane triggered a massive storm surge that engulfed the city, killing an estimated 8,000 people. The hurricane remains the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history, with floodwaters swallowing entire neighborhoods in minutes. Powerful waves and 145 miles per hour winds reduced the city to rubble, leaving bodies buried beneath debris and mud. In response, Galveston built a 17-foot seawall and raised the city's elevation to prevent future storm-related flooding. The Ohio River flood of 1937 inundated major cities, including Cincinnati, Louisville, and Evansville, forcing 1 million people from their homes. Weeks of relentless rain caused the river to swell to record levels, submerging entire downtown districts and cutting off access to food and supplies. Factories, hospitals, and schools were underwater for weeks, bringing economic devastation to the region. The National Guard was deployed to rescue residents stranded on rooftops and distribute emergency aid. The flood spurred the development of floodwalls and improved drainage systems throughout the Ohio Valley. In 1965, Hurricane Betsy caused record-breaking flooding in Louisiana, killing 76 people and leaving New Orleans underwater. The storm surge overwhelmed levees, causing widespread destruction and highlighting the city's vulnerability to major hurricanes. New Orleans remained flooded for days, with many residents trapped in their homes without food or clean water. The disaster led to calls for better hurricane preparedness, setting the stage for future flood control projects. The Hurricane Camille flood of 1969 caused historic rainfall, dumping 27 inches of water in Virginia within a few hours. The excessive rain triggered deadly landslides and flash floods, wiping out entire towns in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Many victims were killed in their sleep as mud and water rushed into their homes, leaving no chance of escape. Camille's floods cut off entire communities, forcing emergency crews to rescue survivors by helicopter. The devastation emphasized the dangers of inland flooding caused by hurricanes, which often receive less attention than coastal storm surges. The Big Thompson flood of 1976 in Colorado remains one of the deadliest flash floods in U.S. history, killing 144 people. A sudden storm dumped 12 inches of rain in the Rocky Mountains, sending a deadly surge of water through a narrow canyon. Campers and tourists were swept away as the raging floodwaters tore through roads, homes, and bridges. The flood reshaped the canyon's landscape, leaving behind massive boulders and deep scars in the valley. The Missouri floods of 1993 affected 9 states and caused billions in damages, making it one of the costliest floods in history. The Missouri and Mississippi rivers swelled beyond control, submerging farms, highways, and entire towns for months. Levee failures forced thousands of residents to flee, with some communities permanently abandoned due to repeated flooding. The disaster led to major investments in floodplain management and buyout programs to prevent rebuilding in high-risk areas. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina unleashed catastrophic flooding in New Orleans, killing over 1,800 people and leaving the city in ruins. The failure of levees allowed floodwaters to engulf 80% of the city, stranding thousands on rooftops and in attics. Survivors waited for days without food, water, or medical aid as rescue efforts struggled to reach them. The aftermath of Katrina exposed major flaws in disaster response and emergency planning at both local and federal levels. The storm led to one of the largest mass evacuations in U.S. history, with over 1 million people displaced. In 2017, Hurricane Harvey brought record-breaking rainfall to Texas, causing devastating flooding that left Houston submerged. Some areas received over 50 inches of rain, making it the wettest hurricane in U.S. history and overwhelming flood control systems. Entire highways were transformed into rivers, trapping residents in their homes and forcing thousands into emergency shelters. The flooding caused an estimated $125 billion in damages, ranking among the costliest disasters in U.S. history. Hurricane Harvey's floods underscored the increasing risks posed by extreme rainfall events fueled by climate change. The Midwest floods of 2019 caused widespread destruction across multiple states, as historic snowmelt and heavy rains overwhelmed levees. Entire farms, towns, and cities were submerged, leading to billions in agricultural losses and forcing thousands to evacuate. The prolonged flooding left many regions underwater for weeks, devastating local economies and highlighting weaknesses in flood management. Floods have shaped the history of the United States, reminding us that water, while essential for life, can also bring catastrophic destruction. Scientists warn that as climate patterns shift, the frequency and severity of major floods will continue to increase in the coming decades. Improved flood defenses, early warning systems, and responsible land management will be critical in preventing future disasters from wiping out entire communities. Despite modern technology, floods remain one of the most unpredictable and devastating natural disasters, capable of destroying entire cities in mere hours. The stories of past floods serve as both a warning and a call to action to better prepare for the devastating power of rising waters.